If you're diagnosed with frozen shoulder or shoulder impingement, then this video is specifically for you. We're gonna talk about the biomechanics of the shoulder and what you need to know to be able to fix it. Now there's 5 top things that we need to be doing for range of motion. Some of them are stretches, but a lot of it's soft tissue mobilization, like actually breaking up that muscle tissue. We have a bunch of areas where muscles overlap, and where muscles overlap, they tend to get stuck together. And that's where we're gonna focus the majority of our soft tissue mobilization. And then if we're gonna do a stretch afterward, that's where we're gonna focus in those areas where the overlap happens. Now, thinking about the shoulder biomechanics, we have to understand that the shoulder blade and the glenohumeral joint right here, these two joints work together. That's why I have so much range of motion in my shoulder. The most range of motion in the entire body is happening at my shoulder, and we can do that because it's 2 joints working simultaneously together. And so the best way to look at it breaking down with this model is that this joint is gonna move twice as much as the shoulder blade moves, right? I have a wing that comes out to the side right here. That's creating the space for this joint right here. But when I go up to 60 degrees, so 0 to 60 degrees, just right here, this joint right here, all this motion that happens is happening twice as much as the shoulder blades moving out to the side, the wing that's coming out. So once I get to 60 degrees, they move 1 to 1. So they move an even amount. So what's really happening is I get up to here, this joint moves. You can see how this space is decreased right here. This is called the subacromial space. If the shoulder blade doesn't move really well, then we get a pinching right here on the acromion, and we pinch our rotator cuff right there. So that we don't want that to happen. So what we're gonna do is we're looking at 60 degrees, and then the shoulder blade moves with the glenohumeral joint. And we have one more model to look at. So this right here, these muscles will pinch up into here. It should roll and glide down like this as that comes up. So they're moving 1 to 1 past 60 degrees. These move 1 to 1. And that creates the space for this glenohumeral joint. So to get that shoulder blade to move properly, we're gonna have to do some stretches and some soft tissue mobilization, and that's specifically what we're gonna dig into in this video, so let's get into it. Right here on the model, looking at the front of the shoulder blade. So we're gonna look at the front of the shoulder blade, the top of the shoulder blade, on the inside of the shoulder blade, and on the outside of the shoulder blade. If we work 3-dimensionally all the way around the shoulder blade, then we're getting a very comprehensive approach to fixing a shoulder problem, and that's very thorough, and that's what we do at our clinic. We wanna make sure we're very thorough and we cover all our bases. So the pec minor is a muscle. It looks just like my hand. It attaches from the rib cage and it pulls on this bone right here on the shoulder blade, and it'll make it tip forward. So if my pec minor is tight right here, it's attached on this spot right here, it's gonna pull that shoulder blade into an anterior tilt right there. So I gotta loosen up that muscle right there. I gotta loosen up right here in the pec minor, and so that's the first thing we're gonna do. So working on our pec minor, so I'm gonna get up against a wall. Any type of stick is gonna work. This is a MOBO. We use it for almost everything because it covers all our bases. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press right here into that pec muscle. I'm gonna work on the front of the shoulder blade from working on my pec. So I get up against the wall and I dig into this muscle. I'm driving my shoulder blade down and back. That pec minor muscle allows me to put my arm behind my back. So when I reach behind my back, this muscle tightens up and it pulls that shoulder blade into an anterior tilt, a frontward tilt. I want it to be able to sit back flat down against the rib cage. I got to loosen up that muscle. So I'm going to get right in here to that pec muscle, and I'm going to drive that shoulder blade down, and I just dig into that muscle right here. All of these things we're going to be looking to do a minute because we don't want to do more than 10 minutes of mobility work. I want to dig into it for a minute. I'm just kind of grinding into those muscles, and I'm grinding in right here, right inside, almost to my armpit right there, but just outside of it, right in this area. I'm digging into it, and I have that pressure against the wall to be able to get it, and I'm driving that shoulder blade down at the same time. And I'm just kneading into it like this. So I knead into it, and then I loosen that up, and then we move on to number 2. Okay, now we've got to get inside the shoulder blades right here. So digging into this muscle tissue right here, we have the traps, we have the rhomboids, we have a lot of stuff going on right here. It gets stiff. So I want to get a double lacrosse balls or this MOBO. I want to dig into this spot right here. I want to dig into this spot right here. I want to dig into this spot right here. When I do that, I want to be having some consistent pressure. I want to breathe and relax. So what I'm going to do is get it against the table. It's best to do on the ground, but on this table, I put a pretty thick yoga mat. So it's kind of like your bed. And if that's what you have options to, if you can't get up and down from the ground, then that's what we're going to do. When we do this, we want to be gentle with it. So I'm going to lay this down, and then I'm going to lay down to the side, and I'm going to roll back right here. And I'm getting on that in between my shoulder blades right here. Put my hands underneath my head. When I do that, my shoulder blades, you can see my arms are coming up to the side and I bend them. So my shoulder blades are moving up out of the way, just like what we talked about before. So now I breathe and relax, keeping my knees bent. And I take 5 breaths right here. Super easy, super gentle. If it's really intense, make sure that your neck isn't in a bad extended position, but it's in neutral right here. And so you might need to throw a pillow underneath your head. That's okay. You might need to throw a pillow underneath your butt to raise up if the double lacrosse balls is too big. All that's okay. We want to be able to breathe and relax through this. And then I'm going to move down into that other spot that we talked about on Bill over there. And then I breathe and relax right here, 5 breaths. Each time when I do my 5 breaths, I'm just sinking down into it. And that's it. I'm just loosening up, getting thoracic mobility in that one area. Now moving on to number 3. Now we have muscles on the top of our shoulder blade right here. We have our upper trap, we have our levator, and we have our first rib. And so what I'm going to do is get up against the wall. And so just like when I'm working on the pec, and you can pair these two together, so we can do that. So I had number 1 and 2. This number 1 and 3 should probably go together, and then we go to number 2. So getting up against the wall, I'm going to get inverted like I'm almost parallel with the wall, and I'm going to dig into these muscles on the top of my shoulder blade. I've just found this to be the easiest way to get into it. So if I want to have good pressure right here, I have to do it with the pressure coming down into that upper part of the shoulder blade. And so I'm digging into these muscles in my upper trap, and I'm just totally relaxing. Same thing, I'm going to breathe and get 5 breaths right here. And then I'm going to move just out to the side, find tender spots, and then breathe, digging into it. And I'm doing that for about a minute. So 5 breaths, 2 different times, digging into that upper part. So I've got into the front side, I got into the upper part, then we'll get inside the shoulder blade, right? Digging into these spots right here beneath the shoulder blades, at the base of the shoulder blades, and then mid shoulder blade, right? In between the shoulder blades right there. So now I've mobilized the front side of the shoulder blade, the top of the shoulder blade, and then in between. Now we're gonna move on to the outside of the shoulder blade. Now that we got inside the shoulder blades, now we're gonna go on the outside of the shoulder blade. We call this the Hollywood, because if I was in Hollywood, which I'm not, I'm in Texas, but if I was in Hollywood, then I might do this pose kind of for pictures, but for this video, I'm gonna hang out in this position because now I got pressure on the outside of the shoulder blade. So I've got these double lacrosse balls, a single lacrosse ball. It just needs to be tender, and we need to break up that tissue right here, outside my shoulder blade, underneath the tricep, outside the shoulder blade right here, very close to the armpit, but you can feel there's a lot of muscle right here, and that's where muscles overlap. So I'm gonna get pressure on the outside, resting my head down. I don't want to cause neck problems because I'm doing all this stuff, but now I'm just going to kind of glide into these muscles right here. You can also just sit down in it. This is a fairly tender spot for me, and I'll do that same 5 breaths, just digging into it and breathing and kind of sinking down in, and then I'm going to find a spot that's a little bit more tender right there, and now I just breathe and sink down into it. I'm spending about a minute. That's 2 to 3 sets of 5 breaths, just finding tender spots right here. So I found a really tender spot right there, and I may move a little bit just to kind of glide through that area, and I'm loosening up the outside of that shoulder blade. So now I got the front, I got the top, I got in between the shoulder blades, and I got the outside of the shoulder blade. And now we're gonna do a stretch. So I've broken up soft tissue mobilization, breaking up all that muscle tissue so that I have good mobility in the shoulder blade, and then now I'm gonna lengthen it. Right here with lengthening these muscles, we call it threading the needle. So, and there's two different options. I can thread the needle. So I'm sitting down on my heels right here. I thread the needle coming across right here, but I go at an angle coming upward. So I'm diagonal upward. I'm gonna rest my head down on my arm right here, and I'm dropping down. And I rest my hand down. I'm really getting some length with it, resting my other arm on top of my right hand, and then I'm gonna drop my head down, and then I'm just shifting back. I don't wanna twist up in my back a ton, but I'm shifting back into this armpit area because I wanna loosen up those muscles right here. Breathe and relax. Same thing, 5 breaths, switching sides, put my hand down, rest my head down into it, and you should feel a really good stretch down on these muscles on the outside. That's getting our lat, that's getting all of our rotator cuff muscles on the outside, really teres minor, teres major, and all where there's an overlap, even our tricep is overlapping back here. So I'm loosening up all those muscles because we don't want to get to a point where we're doing exercise and strengthening them up. The purpose of this video is to get the soft tissue mobilization techniques and then the stretch. And when we do that, we've mobilized everything. And then when we do our exercises, we're working on scapular retraction. We're driving those shoulder blades down and back to get strength so that we can start engaging all the correct muscles. Like I said, all of these techniques right now are working on mobility so the shoulder blades can move really well. You're gonna need stability as well. So check out our videos on stability of the shoulders because most people have really good range of motion. They're moving around, but they don't do the stability work. And a lot of people will lose their mobility because they don't have the stability work. So their body's trying to create tightness in those muscles so they're not moving too much. So we need a combination of both. Some people need a little bit more mobility. Some people need a little bit more stability, and those are some decisions you're gonna have to make. Once you get into these exercises, you get into a consistent routine, you'll see where your deficits are and where you need to work more, but both in doing it a combination is gonna be the best thing for you. If you have any questions about these videos or these exercises, leave them below. We can give a more comprehensive view of how we put these things together in the clinic and how we get such good results for our clients. We want you to get those same results, so leave a comment and let us know. Check out the other videos on stability and mobility. We'll see you in the next video. Get mobile and stay active.